Yeah, greetings and welcome to another one of PACM TV live shows. And today we'll be having Brother KhepHeru, and he'll be speaking on the topic of 10 years after the earthquake happened in Haiti, and be looking at Haiti in quite a bit of depth. So, what I like to do at this point is turn to KhepHeru and just ask him to introduce himself briefly. Just say a little bit about himself and the topic he's going to speak about. So I'll just introduce you now to KhepHeru.
Give thanks, Brother Taharkah, uh, and greetings. Oh, honor and respect. Honor, respect to the family, to my African family, and to anyone else who happens to be uh, in the presence, who happens to be with us. Um, I'm calling myself KhepHeru. I believe I chose that name and it was given to me altogether the same around 1990 at a conference in Texas uh, where I was with Dr. Jeffries, Professor Small, and a few other of my mentors. And we were asked, myself and the other sons of Africa who were with those mentors, to choose an African name. And I opened different books, closed my eyes, and finally settled on one with my finger and opened, and it said KhepHeru or KhepHeru, and you had to translate, and I found it meant he who is undergoing a transformation, he or she, who is going in a metamorphosis. And I learned further that the symbol for it is the Kemetic scarab beetle, so-called dung beetle, etc. But a creature undergoing metamorphosis. And now I took it on and I said thank you, etc. But I haven't begun to use this name until very recently, and it's been 1990, so it's been 30 years. So maybe it's my time now to be KhepHeru. People know me best as Brother Mario. I'm a member of the Pan African Society Community Forum, the PASCF. I as one of the founding members of UHUK, United Haitians in the United Kingdom, because I am coming through Ayiti, the land of Dessalines and Christophe and Toussaint, um, those Africans. I'm also a member of the Haiti support group that I asked to join sometime in the past few years. And although the group, so far as I know, is quite inactive now, as is UHUK, um, although members are around. And about is it gosh, it's been a long time, maybe about 5 years ago, I began to decide that I had to be in Haiti and to be starting an institution. And that institution was to be dedicated to Jean-Jacques Dessalines. So I am right now the founder of the Jean-Jacques Dessalines Imperial Institute. But I know I won't be alone in this. I know eventually that family will gather itself up and we'll get this thing going for real. The building is up. The building, Campus 1 is up of the Jean-Jacques Dessalines Imperial Institute, and every word in there is meant and is there for a reason. And the building needs to be finished, and it needs to be, equipped. And that's Campus 1, which is our teachers' college. And a minimum of 5 campuses is envisioned to be spotted throughout Haiti. A minimum. and they're expected to be different levels of education from kindergarten right up to the university and things in between. But we're starting with the Teachers College to train our instructors, our teachers. It's in Port-au-Prince, but the other campuses will not be in Port-au-Prince. They have to be throughout Haiti. And what do I do here in the UK? I'm an educator. I'm a science educator, general science, secondary level. And yeah, that's who we are basically. And we are happy to give, to tell people more uh, as things, as the evening goes, but as the show goes on. But that's Brother Mario or Brother KhepHeru. Yes, Brother Taharkah, you can, yeah, that's
Yes,
the
brother.
introduction. And I could, yeah, maybe get onto the presentation this evening if that's, yeah.
Yeah,
Let's see
that's
if I
fine.
can
Yeah,
see
as you can see, the screen behind me outlines tonight's presentation in Haiti, 10 years after the earthquake. But also, as you can see, there's other headings Brother Mario will be touching on as he goes through the presentation. So,
it. Yes. Uh, yes, it was was it just last week, Brother Dahaka, that you let me know about this. And uh, although I don't know, we're being we not quarantined, we're under lockdown, and so I'm taking advantage of this. I'm just going in. You see this face full of forest that I've left allowed to grow. I'm letting the face do what it's going to do. So normally I try to like to keep it low, keep it and all that stuff. But let's just see what this time means for us. And so I been trying or been endeavoring to take advantage of this time that we have to introspect, and so let's see what that leads to. But when the brother asked me about this, yeah, I appreciated the opportunity, and I said let's talk about Ayiti. And since we're in 2020, 10 years after the earthquake of 2010, 12th of January, and we commemorated here in the Haitian community, but not in the African community. That wasn't the Haitian community only. We commemorated the 10th year of this on the 12th. Uh, a Haitian sister, suggested that we met together at the newest, the only, not the only, but the second and maybe newest and maybe more more seriously Haitian restaurant that was opened up just last year. In where is this now? Is it in Acton? I believe so. And so the sister suggested that we meet there. But I said, let's go one better. Let's do what we did last year, which is to have a candlelight vigil in the name of these that have passed on, these 300,000 plus that transitioned when the earth opened up in and around Port-au-Prince. And so we did that. We had a little gathering, but of course we had the candlelight vigil. We had also kind of a libation, Haitian style, with some alcohol, with some scents, from that region, some tobacco, some black, what's that herb? Black sage, etc. And some incense, and we drew some veve. What's veve? It is a drawing that is traced on the ground, usually with some maize flour, etc. Uh, and each particular Vodou spirit has a veve that identifies it or that calls it into being, a distinct one. And so this year we drew the veve for Ogu Ferai, Ogu, the iron spirit. Last year, we drew the veve for Ezili, not Ezili Danto, bless her, strong spirit, but Ezili Freda, who is more of a nurturing and comforting spirit, whereas Ursuli Dantor, a fierce mother, just like Ursuli Freda, but fierce as well. She's a warrior sister. So this year it was to the warrior brother, Ogu, who Haitians a lot, to a large degree, tend to identify with Jean-Jacques Dessalines. But one thing I try to emphasize with Ogu Ferrai especially, and also Ogu Badagri, different incarnations of Ogu, is that they weren't just warriors, they were nation builders. Yes, they were for defending the nation, but they're also for building the nation, building institutions, the things that we need, the things that civilize us, the things that keep us going into posterity. So our spirits are not just warrior spirits, they're nation builder spirits, the institution builders. So that's what we did. And so just to give a bit of background, but what I thought I'd do today is, just as it's showed on that fantastic poster that for the Taharkah as put up, is that I wanted to touch on 5 different areas really. And I gave them these names, you know. So I called the first one the grand scale electoral fraud. That's the first topic. I called the second one the merchandising of Haiti, of Ayiti. I called the third one the Petro-Carib scandal. The fourth one, just the Haiti and the Haitian political landscape. And number 5, simply Haiti in a time of COVID-19. So how are we coping with it? So I would like, as I realize I've spoken quite a bit as it is now, I'm going to make a strong effort not to keep going ad nauseum. So to cover each of those 5 areas with a certain brevity. And then, as far as possible, you know, respond to some of our discussions, our queries, our comments, etc., and have an exchange. I think, like most of us, I much prefer an exchange than a monologue. Yeah. Although I realize I can be seduced into the monologue as well, just like all of us. But no monologue today. Too much. Grand electoral hijack. That's what I call this one. The backdrop for it is that yes, the earthquake happened on the 12th of January, 2010. And my wife, my companion, woke me up. Said, Mario, did you see what happened in the news? I said, well, what is it? So I went right to the television, and there it was. Earthquake, Haiti shaken up. And then as the evening wore on, we learned the extent. And as the days wore on, and of course, first instinct, contact my sister. I can't get through. Phone lines are down. Mobile masts are down, etc. It took days for me to make contact, but I eventually got to speak with her after a few days. And then with the thing she described, of course, she would say, Mario, I'm walking over dead bodies on the street. It's just dead bodies. The place smells of death. And so that's the backdrop, to some backdrop. And some of us remember that time, the mobilization, etc. I also remember, and this, I didn't even write this in the notes, but I made a note of it, of how one of the first people on the scene, of course, the first people on the scene were Haitians themselves. We were helping each other, we were rescuing each other. Before anybody can come through, that's who the first responders are, us. Not the state in terms of its apparatus. That still doesn't exist even today, let alone back then, when nobody was thinking of that. And that's part of what our presentation is that the fact that certain movements have simply not been made in Haiti over that time. But the first responders were our fellow Haitians. And then eventually we understand that the US was able to land 22,000, I thought it was 19,000, but it's 22,000 troops into Haiti, armed troops. and take over the airport, to the extent that aid organizations in other countries, including France, including, you know, Sarkozy, were complaining that the US were keeping them from landing with their rescue equipment, with their rescuers, with etc. And that oddity has still not been clarified today. Why would a nation need 22,000 troops armed for battle after a disaster? But that's another here nor there for now. Um, thing is, it was during that same year, though, that uh, it was decided that there was time. It was time for new presidency, for a new government structure in Haiti. Uh, and somehow the idea of interim government that would be set up to simply see us through that disaster was not. Uh, it may have been presented, but it was rejected out of hand. There had to be elections, and there were. But of course, who presided over these elections? Mrs. Hillary Rodham Clinton, Secretary of State of the U.S., her, Obama being president of the U.S., who authorized those troops certainly, and who also appointed uh, Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, the strangest bedfellows you'd think as those who would preside over the reconstruction of Haiti, basically, alongside with Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State of the U.S. And certainly with Hillary conducting it, there were elections in Haiti. Hillary, almost for a time, was the de facto leader of Haiti because she was making the speeches, addressing the international community on behalf of Haiti, addressing the Haitian people with Creole translation done by an American person who spoke actually quite good Creole. But addressing the nation, things that you'd expect the head of state to be doing of that country. But there was an election. There was a big foray for candidates, etc. In the end, they whittled them down to three. It was Mrs. Mirland Manigat, who was a former first lady of a very brief president from a few years back. It was this man called a Senator. What's my senator's name here? Uh, Senator Celestine, Jude Celestin, and finally, an entertainer, a nightclub entertainer, um, known as Sweet Mickey, but formerly known as Michel Martelly. And now, Mrs. Manigat, okay, former First Lady. I don't know that what other qualifications she might have had. I tried to find those qualifications. I couldn't quite find them. Senator Jules Celestin, though, he was a senator in the Haitian Senate. He was also a protege of the previous president, or the current president, who the outgoing president, President Preval. And let's just say for him that he started out as in the same political party as Jean Bertrand Aristide, yeah, President Aristide. But then after the coup against Aristide, which happened just in 2004, eventually with some machinations, he became president. But actually, there was a betrayal, there was a backstabbing that happened. He actually outlawed the political party that he shared with President Aristide and created his own. And he was the current president of Haiti at the time of the earthquake, but a very one people, I believe, ineffectual president, and who maybe was having some personal problems of depression, etc. So he neglected the country. And after the earthquake, things didn't get any better, especially with heavy pressure from the US State Department. They really wanted him out, and he didn't put up much of a fight. It was also the end of his term. But at the end of the electoral runoff of the last three candidates, who comes out? That's the winner, Michel Martelly. The people knew him. He was an entertainer. He was, in fact, one of the most vulgar, raucous entertainers you could find. Um, Once Martelli's had a few drinks, or quite a few, the clothes come off. And what's underneath the clothes? Female underwear, brassiere, knickers, panties. Yeah, that's and then the language is totally, let's say, triple X rated. So this is who was voted into presidency of Haiti. But was he voted? The apparatus was there for election, but the what I call the window dressing, the computerized this and computerized that. But what makes elections in Latin America, in many parts of the world, it's the money that gets doled out to the right places, to the right people, at the right time, with the right management. And so people with better qualifications were simply pushed to the side, and Mr. Martelli was the president. And so what I call it is, the whole thing altogether is that the grand scale electoral hijack, which that was just part one of that hijack, because part two was soon to come. Um, yeah, because I mean that moves me into this part two, or the second part of the thing that I wanted to discuss, which is the merchandising. I call it the merchandising of Haiti, but later on, I found I could simply change the wording to call it the selling off of Haiti, because it turns out that Martelly and Mrs. Clinton had kind of a special relationship. Martelly would spend almost more time in Washington, D.C. than he did in Port-au-Prince. But of course, he was a world traveler. He wasn't even much of an IT resident anyway. He was more of a Florida, just a U.S. person. But he did have dual citizenship, etc., of both countries. And so there were technicalities that were either brushed aside or just met for him to be president. But the fact is, Martelly was put into power to do a job, and that job was a selling off of IT. I'll just make a few notes of a few things that some of which I reported on when I ran a radio program called Jazzology, and I found that I needed to do more than play jazz during that program because yes, jazz is our well-loved art form that other people have claimed for themselves, you know, as happens. But I also wanted to make sure that I had that I couldn't help but to speak about Haiti quite a bit. So there was an Haiti update, and there was also a reparations segment as well in that program. And for the Haiti update, I made sure that I talked about that merchandising of Haiti, that particular example of the island of Lagona. That's a single example. It is not the only one. Which is the largest island in Haiti. It's actually across from Port-au-Prince. You can see it from Port-au-Prince on a good clear day. Even on a day that's not so clear, you can see it. It's 745 square kilometers? Quite a bit. And I'm trying to see what perhaps actual country or what city that I could or what region I could compare it to, but it's quite a bit a large area. And then well, there was a plan, well worked out, well detailed plan of leasing it to this group of investors who are going to build quite a few things on it. Certainly, at least one airport, if not more than one. Quite a few resorts, golf resorts, but their masterpiece there would be an oil refinery. All of a sudden, Haiti was having oil refineries, and you don't bring oil from Arabia or from wherever to Haiti to be refined. That means the oil must be quite local. So, which brings us into the resources of Haiti. Among them, oil. Uh, Another example of sell-off were the mines of Haiti. And one, I can encapsulate it a little bit. One thing that came to light, and that one involved Mrs. Clinton, almost rather indirectly, is that her brother, Tony Rodham, because that's her maiden, yeah, it turned out was on the board of one of the several mining companies that were being given rights or mining rights in Haiti. I think this one was VCS Mining. He was happened to be on the board. Uh, and so again, conflicts of interest, which actually indicated more of what this it turned out to be a kind of the Clinton enterprise in Haiti, because of course, going back to Bill Clinton being named, being made, nominated, placed as the person in charge of the aid money to Haiti. And so I forget what the number was. Was it 64 billion, something to that effect? Lots of billions, money that, imagine something. Here's Haiti, and the money is supposed to drop, yeah, to land in Haiti. There's the money. That's this hand, and there's Haiti. Let me just put it on the screen so it can be seen. And the money just doesn't quite touch. It doesn't quite land. Yeah. And so there was this documentary put together called, I believe, "Where is the Money?" or something. What become of the money? And I don't remember the name of the person who did it. I remember I was asked to be part of a talk on it, and yeah, I remember Brother Cecil was there, and so was Cecil Gutsmore. There was this brother's filmmaker, this Haitian filmmaker, who operates, I think, more around Europe than Haiti itself. The brother's name will come back to me. He was there, etc. Yeah, we had a talk after that film, that documentary. The fact is, uh, that election was pretty much to set up Enterprise Haiti. In fact, the motto of the Martelly presidency for Haiti was simply, "Haiti is open for business. You make of that what you will." Anyway, uh, and of course, we know among the investors and mining for gold in Haiti, but we know there's more than that, was the IMF itself. The International Monetary Fund was one among the investors. And so it saw that there was some stuff to invest in Haiti. You don't just invest willy-nilly where there isn't a proper return if you are the IMF. And so I'm moving through, and I'm taking us into the third part of it, which is the Petrocarib scandal. And that some of us may have heard something about. That was in that. What happened with that is that, in fact, what I should, the way I have it written here, I have as a preamble the fact that Martelly, by the time it came to the 5th year of Michel Martelly's regime, to call it that, he had already not held election that he was supposed to hold parliamentary elections. He was ruling by decree, quote unquote, and the people were on the streets. They wanted him out. But of course, if you're supported by the U.S., the will of the people has a hard time being exercised where you're concerned. And so that was certainly the case with Martelly. He was able to make it right to the end of his term. Now he wanted to hold elections, of course, to bring in the next president. And of course, his party, of course, it's the parties that win the election, and of course their candidate wins. And of course, some of us, those Haitians among us, who know the name of the Haitian political party, but for those of us who don't, it's called Parti Haiti Tête Calée. It's translated as the Haitian political party, the Bald Head Party, the Bald Heads. The Bald Heads, that's the name of the party. And so the Bald Head Party again felt they were sure to win the next election, and they fielded their next candidate, hand chosen, some say by Martelly himself, a man by the name of Jovenel Moïse. The people flat out they were not having it. So that election was not happening on that day. at that time. This is 2015. In fact, it's December, or rather, it's winter of 2014 into 2015. And so Haiti had to have an interim government for that year, from 2015 to into 2016, and it was led by this man called Jocelyn Privert. I think where I know that some political parties, other in opposition, etc., they came together. Martelly couldn't hold, was not even allowed to hold by the people. Did I hear you trying to come in, Brother Taharkah?
No, 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 it's fine.
Right, and so yes, the man was there. Supposedly, the elections were meant to be held, in April of that year of 2015, but that wasn't to happen. In fact, it did happen in the end toward December. But when people who are determined, people who are clear what their interests are, what their interest is, what their interests are, people who are clear what it is that they want from a situation, and who really don't have very many compunctions as to what they will do, what they won't do. To me, that is this international community. That is certainly this entity called the OAS, the Organization of American States. They were determined that this thing that they set up in Haiti was what was going to go. So, in spite of the people's fierce opposition, they held their election. They set up the apparatus, the window dressing to show all this here. And people were being invited to come and be observers. People went. The observers were led around by pretty much to the places where they were meant to be led to. And before you know it, even before official results came out, Digicel published a projection of who was going to win. And when the official results came, they were pretty much to the letter of what as Digicel, that company, that phone company in the whole Caribbean, had predicted. And you hear later on that Digicel was serious canvassing for certain candidates. They were giving free phone cards with a picture of their chosen candidate at the back, etc. And so people got done what they set out to do in Haiti. And I don't mean the people, I mean people. And so that was phase two, pretty much, of the grand scale electoral fraud. But coming to now part three, the Petro-Caribbean scandal, which broke out just after I traveled out of Haiti, which was in December in 2017. And I think by the time the new year hit, there was talk of this Petro-Caribbean scandal. But of course, the people had been on the street. The people have been on the street continuously. People have been protesting in Haiti since Martelly, pretty much nonstop, with short hiatuses in between. But of course, things really came to a head during 2017. The Jovenel Moïse presidency, first year of his presidency, because different trade unions began to say, "What is this? Teachers working for months and not getting paid, and other state workers." But then, right after I left Haiti, because I was in Haiti all of 2017 for the construction, to begin building the institute, the campus one of the institute, and that was managed, thank goodness. And we've gotten as far as we've gotten, and things, yes, are now at a standstill, but we've gotten a good distance. Now, when I got back, by the time I got back, the people were really on the street. And then it turned out that, I forget what the year that was. It was, in fact, during the Preval presidency. maybe 2007, 2006, Hugo Chavez instituted this loan program for the whole Caribbean, but he certainly had a special thing for Haiti. Hugo Chavez always on about how without Haiti there would have been no Venezuela. There would have been no support for that freedom fighter. Yes, so to some I know that there's more to the story than we tend to hear, but certainly he came to Haiti to get aid after Haiti became independent, to carry independence throughout South America, and he got that aid. And before him, Miranda came, but the name of that one person will come to me, and I know somebody will remind me of it, when we do our questions, etc., our comments. Anyway, Chavez champions Haiti, etc. It always, and so Haiti was among those who received that loan, and Haiti's amount was $3.8 billion equivalent of petrol, because he didn't have that cash to give, so he gave petrol because they had plenty of it, and that petrol was sold, and that money was collected. 3.8, in some states, 4 billion US dollars equivalent, and that money was for development. It was for schools, for hospitals. It was for roads. It was for infrastructure. And people, companies were vying for contracts, and they got contracts. Among the contractors was Mr. Jovenel Moïse, not yet president at the time. Well, come 2018, early 2018, a movement arose. Where's the money? Where's the development? Where's any of it? And nobody could answer, because a magic trick was performed, a very good one, because a group of people made $3.8 billion disappear. Contracts was gone into, and things, and if they said they were going to build 3 hospitals, you could see a foundation somewhere, one, but no hospital. They were going to build stadia. You see some land that was designated for a stadium to be built, no stadium. Schools, forget it. Roads, forget it. And so the people were on the street for I'd say a good 2 years. Now we barely hear anything of it, but it was a very powerful movement. And from the energy that was behind it, I tend to feel that there's a generation of young Haitians today who I think this would have, shaped how they process politics in Haiti, because there was energy behind this thing, international energy, certainly diasporan energy, as well as native energy in Haiti. So that's the Petro-Caribbean scandal. And of course, it was, I suppose, the best remembered, perhaps, part of that year of protest, or those 2 years of protests from 2018, 2019, and back into 2017. But of course, in 2019, I believe it was, we had the massacre at La Saline, where the levels of protest, the tone of the protest was so high that the government responded in an ugly kind of way. And a good, I think the numbers were around 60 people in La Saline, which is a part of really just neglect is beyond the word. La Saline, Cité Soleil, these are adjoining places. Some of us have heard of Cité Soleil, where it's beyond neglect. It's criminal. It's obscene what a government, I say, it doesn't just allow to be, but actually foments in terms of suffering on the people. And so a good 60-odd people were massacred in the night, and they say bandits did it, they say this and that did it, but there was enough of a strong suspicion that there was government involvement to quell the levels of protests, to terrorize people into not protesting. Some of the more obscene things came out where people's bodies were thrown into ravines for the pigs to eat. And some of those videos, that I just had to say, no, I can't watch anymore. I have to put that aside and not share that either. I didn't share it with anybody. I received it, but I didn't share it. I told people about it, but I didn't. And so, yeah. So, but that's part of the Petro-Caribbean scandal. But that around the same time as that. So there was protest upon protest happening, and in fact, let's move to because the next thing I'm going to talk about, I put it into the segment called the Haitian political landscape, the Haitian political landscape. What are we looking at here in terms of our politics? Who are politicians? What can we do anything with? Are they of any use to Haiti as she is now? What can be salvaged? You have a president who is implicated in a scandal and who doesn't answer for it, who calls himself the man to end corruption in Haiti. What's the problem in Haiti? He'll say Haiti has 5 problems, only 5: corruption, 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 corruption. All 5. That's what he repeats over and over. But he's involved. He's not believable. And so, but we get to the political landscape, and come 2019, March 2019, Trump calls or invites Caribbean leaders to his resort in Florida. And not everybody goes, but Jovenel goes, along with others. I believe the St. Lucian one, and Prime Minister, etc., and at least 1 or 2 others. And he basically orders them to spurn Maduro in Venezuela and elevate and recognize Juan Guaido as president of Venezuela. Maduro just won an election to continue with his mandate, for the new mandate. But the opposition in Venezuela is tired of it. Certainly, they were tired of Chavez, and they certainly don't have any use for Maduro. And so they put up their man, and in what they couldn't get democratically, they tried to get in other ways. And so, yes, and many Caribbean countries rejected that call. They wouldn't do it. But I almost said Martelly, but I meant Jovenel Moise. He had no choice but to accept, because he is the US's man in Haiti. He had to do what his boss ordered him to do. And so he rejected Maduro, recognized, whereas only 2 years, not even 2 years, more like 18 months or so before, he was in Venezuela embracing Maduro and talking, signing, new agreements, etc. But here is at the behest of the US spurning him. And so Haitians felt this very deeply. Many Haitians who had already had some level of contempt for the man. This just pretty much that was it for him in terms of any respect Haitians might have had for him and his administration. And so far as I know, there was not much outcry from the parliament either. In terms of the political landscape of Haiti, I find that I just take my cue from my travels to a place called Martissant. And Martissant is part of Port-au-Prince. It's just one of the outer parts of Port-au-Prince. And to get into Martissant, one of the I guess best ways, I suppose, even though there's a lot of congestion there, traffic congestion, you have to go through the main road in Port-au-Prince, the Boulevard Jean-Jacques Dessalines, yeah, also known as National Road number 1. What you experience going through there in terms of mountains of rubbish, of stinking rubbish, and people have to pretty much navigate and negotiate that. And those who are doing street businesses there, that's what. And you said this doesn't get thrown there by neglect. This is piled there. Somebody wants this place to be like this. It's as if they're punishing the Haitian people. So to me, this characterizes anything that calls itself a government in a country. And so really, in terms of the political landscape, and I found myself thinking of the quote, uh, better to rule in hell than to serve in heaven. Because what is created in Haiti is a living hell that certain entities preside over. And the idea of people working in such a way as to include the population and give these people what any people deserve is out of the question. But let's have a hellish place where people barely survive daily and then keep tightening the screws on them. Anyway, that's the landscape as I characterize it, the political landscape. And then we come to Haiti in the time of COVID-19. And I'm taking a cue from something I just received on the 7th. That's Thursday, just past Thursday, which is the latest report on COVID-19 in Haiti. And actually, I think it was actually done in Dominican Republic, and it was comparing the two, comparing the impact of COVID-19 of this coronavirus outbreak between Haiti and Dominican Republic. Dominican Republic reports 9,376 cases. Haiti, by that date, has reported 129. So 9,376 in DR compared to 129 in Haiti. In terms of survivability, uh, uh-huh. In DR, they report that 2,286 people have had it and survived and recovered. In Haiti, of the 129, 16 are reported to have had it and recovered, made good recovery. Now, in terms of the death toll, Dominican Republic reports as of last Thursday 380 deaths out of the 9,000 infections plus. Haiti, out of the 129 infections reported 12 deaths reported. Now, some will tell you that, of course, comparing Haiti and Dominican Republic in terms of infrastructure, in terms of hospitals, in terms of healthcare availability, they have a healthcare system in Dominican Republic. In Haiti, yeah, to be respectful to our doctors who are still there, who are working. I have a cousin who just was doing an internship right now. Bless her. Her mother having ensured that she got into medical school, selling food on the street for 6 nights a week and days. And she put her daughter taking loans wherever she can get them at extortionate rates. And then there's one brother that I know here, for example, whose mother is a GP in Haiti and who stayed. She visits here, but she works in Haiti. I've gone to see doctors in Haiti. So we have a health system. It's just that it's not set up to help the people itself. It's set up to help those who can afford it. And much of our healthcare is provided by Cuban doctors. who've had, who've set up in Haiti for the longest time. And then around the time of the earthquake, Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, again, and other groups. But Cuba has been there the longest and done the heaviest work, and just they work. They just come in, they do it. But in DR, they have their health system. So there's people saying that the actual reporting of this, it may not be what it needs to be in Haiti. But even with, if their numbers were even real, what they're showing with these numbers is that it works out that the mortality rate in the Dominican Republic is 4.05. So the rate of deaths compared to infections, 4.05. But in Haiti, where there are only 129 cases reported and only 12 deaths, it's 9.3% death rate. So our death rate, even with our smaller numbers, is still higher. And but of course, what's the surprise here? When the country it's beyond criminal neglect. It's actual, it's malice, because you have to have hatred in your heart for somebody to treat them that way, for a country to treat it in that way. It's interesting, but that's pretty much where I'll leave it with this presentation, and then we can just have a bit of discussion on it, if yeah, depending on what's in people's minds and what's in your hearts, etc. Yeah. Was it Taharkah? Are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still I'm still here. That was very interesting. I'm looking. So at this point, we'll
Oh,
open up for discussions and comments. So make sure you send in your comments and discussion. I've got two other people who I'm going to put in the chat room, and they'll also like to make a contribution considering what the topic is. So I'll put one in. That's Brother Beanie and
hey, brother King.
Brother Pepperkai. So
Brother
Greeting,
yeah,
Brother
so
King. Honor and respect.
yeah, just to say greetings. So while you were
Greetings.
speaking,
Honor
a
and
few
respect.
comments came in. So I'll start putting the comments up and then we can
Yes,
discuss around it.
super.
But just before we go into the taking the comments, I'd just like to hear from Brother Beanie and Brother Pepperkai from what they hear. I mean, did they hear what Mario was saying?
only a small bit towards the end because I had problem connecting.
Okay, okay, okay.
That's Oh, sorry to hear
Yeah.
that, but we
So
can hear you
anyway,
now, though. Mhm.
I'll put up some comments and just to say that we have listeners right around. This is a brother from Azania that's
Aye.
listening in, Brother Sabelo Don Sibanda, and he's listening in. So one of the questions I would like to start off by asking Brother Mario
Hmm.
in terms of Haiti. We know that during the earthquake, it was said that the Nepalese soldiers came in and they brought with them cholera. And we heard that the cholera ended up killing, I'm not sure of the figures, but am I right if I would say in excess of 30,000 people?
Uh, you it's let's talk more in terms of 10,000 people. That is officially known,
Yeah,
but as we know, uh, in terms of official figures, don't necessarily reflect what happens in reality all the time.
that's
So,
right.
but we speak comfortably about comfortably, to use that term, 10,000 plus. Yes.
Okay, okay. So what is the situation right
However,
now
in terms of
in terms of that cholera?
I'll come back to it.
Yeah,
Yeah. In terms of infection, uh, a good 800,000 to a million were actually infected and affected by it. And then because it was actually uh, 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 um, it actually put into Haiti's main river system. So people downstream, we get our water, from our rivers for our washing, for our drinking, for our cooking. People were just getting it just like that. Um, but you're asking what the situation is now. Well,
Yeah.
uh, I would say Haiti is still trying to cope with that. I think I would say that the level of contamination, nature is the ultimate healer. So nature would have put this thing into some kind of perspective by now, 10 years down the line. But Haitians still have to purify our water before we drink it. Our tap water, with our water systems, and of course the availability of water, rather than improving, is decreasing. Potable water, drinkable water,
Okay.
usable water. And so we
Right.
have to purify our drinking water. We can't just, in fact, no, Haitians are buying water, excuse me, because what people do is they get it, they buy bulk water. And I buy water when to drink, drinking water, you have to go buy it. Unless you
Mm-hmm.
have a sophisticated filtration system at home, for water that comes, uh, not necessarily daily, maybe, if you're lucky, most days a week for a certain number of hours. This is Port-au-Prince we're talking about, the capital. And in some areas, it comes, is it once a week? Something to that effect. It's or every other day, every 3 days. It's
Mm-hmm.
We're talking 20 in the 21st century, a country. hmm, it's beyond neglect. It's something else. Let's call things by what they are.
Okay.
So yeah. No, I don't know that there are new cases, but there may be, of cholera being reported, because things don't just go away. Nature can take things away in nature's time. But when we're talking civilized countries, when we're talking, then you deal with outbreaks. You deal with infrastructure needed. You deal, if you leave it to nature, things will have a different pace.
That's right. So I don't know if Brother Pepper Kai or Brother Bean would like to come in and make a
Yeah,
comment.
Jeff,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that the situation as it is for us as African globally. Um, One thing with Haiti is that this white devil never forget what we've done to them, giving them a beating. So they'll do everything to try and put in their stooge, their stooge who are um, part of the criminal fraternity of white people who want to keep Haiti down. They collect so much money for the earthquake, and people like Bill Clinton and his wife chief off the money, and they've messed up Haiti to keep it at a low level. But the people of Haiti um, need a cultural revolution there going on, so we can get our sense of African pride and remove those lackeys who are with them, who are oppressing our people and part of the whole Eurocentric mentality need to go. It is the whole white world feel they have to mess up Haiti in terms of pressing the people, keeping them in poverty, when Haiti is a very mineral rich society and they just want to exploit it. I know that there's oil there, I know that there's gold there, I know there's a lot of mineral there. So if the people of Haiti mindset need to change to a more revolutionary mindset that will challenge this monster that are, I call them white terrorists. If we, I don't think we should ever talk of white people, white supremacy. That's the wrong word to call them. They're white terrorists that are terrorizing our people. So spiritually, saying that our ancestors need to enlighten our people so that we can see this enemy and fight them.
Okay. So hold on. All
Thank you
right.
for your comment, Brother Benny. It's great to
Yeah.
see you.
Great to see you
Long
too as
time.
well. I would say
Hmm.
we're still there.
Hmm.
We're still there.
Well,
Oh,
say again, brother.
We're still there. In
We're still
passport.
here.
oh,
We're all still
okay,
here.
Mario. There was a
All
question
still here.
here
Yeah.
concerning Celestine saying he's a businessman
Yes.
and don't call him a senator.
Ah.
I don't know if you can see that question. It's up on the screen
Celeste
right
is a
now.
businessman. Don't call him Celeste. Right. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. That's from my brother Wilfred. says the businessman. But our brother Wilfred is one of our serious brothers here in the UK. He started the Haitian the Anglo-Haitian Chamber of Commerce. Him and another brother, and he's still running it. He's also connecting the Haitian diaspora here with the Haitian diaspora in France, in nearby France, and helping to forge links there. And brother Wilfred, and I'm going to put him. He put himself on the map, so I'll put him on the map as well. He's actually the owner of the new Haitian restaurant that has opened in Acton, and I invite all of us who can get there as far as possible. You know, if you Google Haitian restaurant in the UK, it'll come up. We know there's a Haitian restaurant in Bournemouth that kind of make Haitian and etc. This one in Acton is the real deal. It's the authentic deal. So, and even during this time of COVID-19, they don't open for actual in-house guests, but they've been having orders for food because once they get customers, they don't lose them. You know, people have been so the people have been ordering their Haitian food, etc., continuously, and you had to close for a little while, etc. But people couldn't wait to start again to make put in their orders. So yes, and I take this on board. Although I think he was at some point a senator. I know he's not now. Um, but for far as I know, he's down as a senator. And around the time um, when he was running, I believe there was a senatorial. But I'll take the correction by all means. You know, it tends to be businessmen. But apparently, he wasn't in the right business because he didn't. You know, he wasn't the selection of Mrs. Clinton and the international the international whatever they call themselves, who pretty much call themselves running Haiti at the moment. Community, international community.
Okay, put you back up. So, one of the points I like to ask you, in terms of the earthquake, we know massive devastation took place, huge, unimaginable demonstration. In terms of the rebuilding of Haiti, especially Port-au-Prince, what's the situation with that at the moment?
Okay. Port-au-Prince now has a new Marriott hotel, uh, and maybe one or two others, but certainly a Marriott. Um, and I understand the reconstruction of the presidential palace. Is it finished yet? I think it's still on the way. Uh, However, I can't point to anything else that was rebuilt in Port-au-Prince. You may see a few little painted shacks that some of these charities, these NGOs have built with bright colors. Uh, to be quite honest, let them show you what they've done because I can't. And by now, I'm not regretting or lamenting what hasn't been built because I understand that they were not there to build anything. It was not their job. It was definitely an error of ours to believe that they would. But by now we must learn the lesson. Uh, these are Trojan horses. They come bearing gifts. Watch out for them. Uh,
Okay.
People have to help themselves. Us Africans, we have to help ourselves. We can, we should, we must.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Now, concerning the earthquake itself, the question here, and it says, was it true that a lot of children went missing after the earthquake? Because I heard there was a big scandal and children was being basically kidnapped and taken away, taken out of Haiti.
Um, you know, on the ocean, there are reefs. There's stones jutting out of the ocean that you can see. But at least sailors know, people who sail the ocean, they know that when they see a reef, they don't approach it, they stay a distance because they know what they see is a fraction of what there is. And and before they even reach the bit that they can see, their ship will be ripped apart by the bits underneath. That woman, evangelical person, whatever, caught kidnapping, running through the Dominican Republic with those 11 children. What was it? Those 11 so-called orphans, and who happened to be caught because maybe she was a bit sloppy in what she was doing. Uh, and then the children had to be returned to their families because they were not orphans. And that woman was arrested. We don't know or by whom or whether she's still serving time. I doubt it. Um, or she served any time, even. The fact is, those are the ones that we saw. Think of the ones we never see, we never will see. That was happening even before the earthquake. And the earthquake just made a given opportunity for people to really come and help themselves to our African children in Haiti. Um, and to think that this practice has ceased now 10 years after the earthquake, when we hear at least rumors of people trafficking, of organ trafficking, and and it's not just Haiti. They just go where the pickings are good, but maybe they have a special taste for Haiti. Children, I don't know, African children from Haiti, who knows? And so the idea of protecting ourselves, our people, starting perhaps with our children, whether it be Haiti, whether it be the US, whether it be, on the continent or throughout the African world. That's something that any people have to do. Otherwise, don't call yourself a people if you can't protect yourself, your children. And so, yeah, because the predatory nature of the world around us is making itself evident. And are we ready to take heed? Or do we just want to proceed, go back to our new normal, all that stuff? To me, I put that in the same vein as the blowing away of these African young men, in the US, one after the other. That one that was a shooting gallery between father and son, when he was jogging, which is coming out, and the one that's just a couple of days ago, who was, involved, I don't know, whatever, you smoked the wrong thing in a car chase where police, they just couldn't wait to blast him. First they tased them, and then they shot him while he was on the ground. But his phone was still running, and it's as if he knew he was going to be dying because he was filming it, or he was putting all of it on Facebook. And the very comments, oh, homie, you're gonna need a covered casket. This is so we're dealing with creatures coming from another space, And as much as we want to keep our humanity, but we can't be playing around and expecting humanity when it's been shown to us there's none coming from those quarters.
Yeah. So, don't know any comments from the two guests, Pepper Kai or Beanie, from what
Well,
you've heard so far.
first, Brother Mario, um, big regret. I didn't connect when you started, so I missed quite a lot of what you had to say.
Okay.
But just pick up from what Brother Beanie raised with us. Haiti has been marked for punishment because of the victory of our Haitian brothers and sisters rising up to defeat slavery. Because we learned quite recently of France's so-called colonial tax on their so-called former territories in Africa. But how many of us make the connection of this plunder and rape by France of these African states in over 500 billion, which France extort yearly from Africa, back to what they call reparation from Haiti? How many of us make that connection? So we have to understand that this gangsterism of the European world, whether we talk about European America or Europe, wherever they find themselves, is a war has been unleashed on us, and we have been able to arm ourselves in our defense. Because we talk about the earthquake in Haiti. Was it really an earthquake? It looked more to me like a bomb. And when we talk about the cholera, which is alleged that was brought by these monopolies soldiers, how sure are we that's how it came there? The UN, with this nice fancy name, United Nations, is no United Nations. It's a gangster club that Europe dominates. China is the only non-European nation there with a veto. And only because China has organized himself to defeat colonialism and able to stand up for themselves. The power within that organization lies with the Security Council. And within the Security Council, America, Russia, Britain, and France, as European powers, have the veto. So whatever negotiating happens, and whatever resolution is arrived at, the European determine what's happening. I say that to say that until we begin to organize ourselves to be able to protect ourselves, we are at the mercy of European and everybody else youngsterism. So what we need to begin to focus on, what is our solution? What do we need to do as a people to end this assault on us? We always talk about the challenges we face, but what we have to ask ourselves, what it is that we must do to end the sunspot. I believe it was in 2004. I was in Suriname, and I went to a market in Suriname, in Paramaribo, and the Asian vendors in that market were so mistreated and disrespected, even my fellow African of Suriname. So wherever our Asian brothers and sisters find themselves, we come under a barrage of injustice, of assault, and what we as Africans globally must realize is the great sacrifice that our Asian brothers and sisters made to free the shackles from our bodies. And as Brother Billy said, we must now begin to focus on the cultural fight that we need to put up. And language is so important because we talk about the international community. There's no such thing because we're not part of it. We are the receiving end of what Europe and everybody else dished out on us. And as we face this so-called pandemic, we have to seize the time and say to ourselves, what do we do now? How do we begin to strategize, to begin to fight this war to win it? And one of the most important tasks we have to do is begin to the retrieving of our minds. Because there's no way the Europeans, the Asians, and everybody else can carry out their atrocity against us without our collusion. We have to stop colluding in our own oppression and become our own liberators. And that is where we need to focus. What do we have to do? What it is that we must do? What it is that we must begin to do from now to ensure that we not continue to bawling and crying like children, stand up as men and women, prepare if need be to die. But we must
Okay.
commit ourselves to prepare ourselves
Right.
for the war that we're in.
Mhm. So that's true. So this would be a good point. There's a question here. I'll put it up on the screen again, pointing out about how Haiti had helped with the liberation
Thank you, Baba.
of Latin and Central America. And there's a name here, I think is Simon Boulevard.
Oliver, thank you for that.
Yeah,
Yes.
who
Thank
set
you,
out. So if you can give us a
Brother
little
Imani.
background on that,
Thank
Mario,
you.
because there's a
That's
few
right.
people I know are not up with
Okay.
the history of
All
what
right.
actually Haiti did.
I'm going to give a bit of extra detail. Haiti finally liberated herself from France, the last holdout, because prior to that, Spain had gotten a butt whooping and had to keep it to the western part of the island. And then Britain thought it was a free for all and thought they could just walk in and take because they had Jamaica. They got their posterior kicked as well. They left quite a few dead bodies in Haiti. And then there was France. there was Napoleonic France that had its American dreams, that was holding the Louisiana territory, which was fully the size of the 13 states at the time of the United States, and France controlled that. And they had their troops, some 50,000 plus troops, ready to go and secure that. But after the defeats at the hands of Toussaint, they decided to divert those troops from the Americas, from North America, to come to Haiti, to put the Africans in our places. And around that same time, General Toussaint was captured, so it is said, by France. But when you've, when your foot has met the rear end of two world powers, and there's a third one, nobody can just accept that you just got tricked by France into accepting something. We think we can also decide, surmise that Brother Toussaint, Papa Toussaint had done his work, and it was now up to others to carry it on. And there were others. Those others were Jean-Jacques Dessalines and Henri Christophe, and then there were others with them. So after Toussaint was taken to France and shackled, etc., and he died in that prison where they killed him slowly, Dessalines took care of the business and gave France its final kick in the rear end, a resounding one it was, because after the first, I think it were at least 2 expeditions, I think it was 3. And then Dessalines, big man, the man, his cleanup man, the man who went to clean up Rochambeau, had to go back to his master and said, no, sorry, I failed. Now, 1804, Haiti declares our independence. Now, around it may have been in 1804, Miranda comes to get help from Dessalines. He gets it. He gets weapons. He gets ships. At least once he gets munitions. He even gets soldiers, Africans, to go fight because Dessalines didn't establish a republic in Haiti. It was just a place of freedom. But come in 1805, it was decided that Haiti was an empire, but specifically the Empire of Freedom. I'm sorry, Haiti, the Empire of Freedom. That was the name with which the emperor referred to Haiti, Emperor Dessalines. But by 1806, the forces that were adamant that there should be no such thing as a place of freedom, that place where ship captains carrying those enslavement ships were actually paid to say, don't bring them over there, bring them here. You'll have to auction them over there, but over here we'll give you a sure price. And all ships full of Africans that landed at Haiti were automatically free and citizens. If you were running from enslavement, you came to Haiti, you were a citizen. You were free. And people would fight and die for you to keep you free. And so that had to end. And so Dessalines was assassinated. Some say that it was all jealousy by rivals within Haiti. Some of us feel that, yes, that was definitely there. But we know that when somebody wants you dead very badly, even if they hide themselves in the shadows, but they can arrange for you to be there. So now it was after Dessalines was murdered, and then Haiti was partitioned into two different, the north and the south, and the main plotter for his assassination, controlling the south, Pétion was his name, a mixed brother. Now it was to him that Bolivar came and asked for aid, and Pétion, yes, carrying to some extent in the spirit of revolution, gave him some aid, give him ships, give him munitions, but certain other things have been said. We learned about Bolivar. We learned that Pétion tended to have him take away the dark ones, the more African-blooded ones, and those who might pose a threat. those who might not have been happy that he murdered Dessalines. And it is rumored, and I'll say it because I'm feeling in here, that his recommendation to Bolivar was, I don't necessarily have to have them back. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't necessarily have to have them back. And when we hear that these Haitian troops, dark-skinned troops, were put in the front lines in South America, etc., and were among the first to go, even after fighting valiantly, because we know how to fight revolutions by then. We knew. And we know about the whitening of South America that came afterwards. Are we clear on this? That all these so-called liberated countries eventually wanted to get rid of the dark populations. Those they didn't kill off, they married off to white women imported from Europe. So, yes, I value our brother Hugo Chavez's championing of Haiti, calling it the Bolivarian Revolution, etc. But a part of me also remembers or feels the part of it that's not so nice. So, yes, don't whitewash our histories. Let's remember all of it so that we're not off our guard, so that we can, walk with awareness when we walk. When we make alliances with awareness. So that's what I'd like to. I don't know if there's more I need to add onto that, but that was yes. South America owes much of its liberation to Haiti, because Haiti was in the business of bringing liberation to places where it wasn't.
I'm glad you bring that in, my brother Mario, because that's one of the pillars of the onslaught of Haiti. Because when Haiti won its independence, by fighting for it, it made Haiti the place of refuge for African people and everybody else who face oppression, a place of freedom. And we must never ever forget that. And that is why Haiti was put under heavy manners, that Haiti
Still,
should not remain the beacon of hope, the place of refuge, the place of freedom.
Now, there's another point I like to bring up. If my memory serves me right, Haiti was invaded in the 1920s by the Americans. That's so. And
1950.
when they did, they confiscated all the gold and locked it up. I heard it was in Citibank in New York. Has that gold ever been returned to Haiti, or have Haiti ever requested its return?
Mm. Uh,
Well,
you know,
Lester,
Brother Benny, we're gonna say something. Go ahead, Elder Benny.
yeah, I'm just saying that Jeff, we can think about it, and none of us can think about if they ever return that money. None of them who thief from us, either on the continent or Haiti, will ever return anything until we, as Africans, become a real superpower, having our own navy, our own army, our own air force, or tactical force, to tell these people you can't just do this to us and we just don't retaliate. It's like, you look at the whole of Africa now. Haiti have set the ball rolling about independence and fighting back against these enemies. And these white devils control um, the world today with their military might until we match them too. But we must have that mindset, an African mindset. And I think Haiti biggest challenge is to have that cultural revolution, to have our own African language spoken in Haiti, and certainly not French, those French who have like to Frenchalize anybody that they colonize. They have the total obedience to France. France, as it stands today, if all them African countries remove their money from the French bank, France will be a ghetto. They'll be starving because it's our money that's coming out of Africa that keep them going. So the money that they steal from Haiti, yes, we'll be in a position one day when we become United States and a United Nation of Africans that we can say, this money you thief from Haiti, return ours. We're gonna put sanction on you, so you have to return the money, and we no apologies, and with interest. So we need to have a clear, different mindset as African people. It's our time now to rise and fight back because we people have been laying back too much and just really chat, 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 but no action. We need the action now, and I think like Haiti needs a very serious cultural revolution because I've come across some certain things when Haiti when they're rioting down there against their president. But the revolutionary spirit is still in Haiti. He'll rise again. He'll rise because the people are kind of getting to understand who the real true criminal, the multinational criminal and multinational criminal organization, the mafia, and they're ruthless in killing our people to take charge of our mineral resource. So we need to have that mindset change that is our resource. So yes, I agree with you, Jeff. No, we need to demand that they give us back our money. France got money for Haiti as well that they thief, and they're just, as I say, white terrorist criminals are always um, attacking African people. So we need a cultural revolution. We definitely need a new mindset because our people has gone asleep, and when they're asleep, the enemy take advantage of you, and they're doing it at this moment. And you see, we're having new colonizers in the Caribbean, and these new colonizers are Chinese, and they're using their technique of art of warfare, the book that was written ages ago about
Sun Tzu.
how they take over countries, and our leaders they need to read it, much less because I know they don't even want to read Marcus Garvey. So people has an opinion, but at least if they read that, they'll see that the Chinese are not in there and our people are not there. Our people are there suffering under every colonialist imperialist master, and we need to wake up people. It's time to wake up.
Thank you, Brother Beanie. Thank you. If I may say one thing, just starting with the last thing that Brother Beanie brought out, that we need, that some of our leaders need to read certain books. I'm very much in support of our leaders, so-called, reading certain books. And I have a very good idea, and I would even be very helpful in helping them to get those books. But if you're reading sometimes, Elder Beanie, and the rest of us family, you need privacy and you need to be in a place where you can read and focus. And the place where our so-called leaders need to be reading from is a prison cell. A great many of them need to be locked up. Now, it's not for me to take lives because, you know, uh, or to advocate the taking of life, because we're given that by a creative force that is, with us. But
Yeah.
when you have a class of people who over certainly decade upon decade make it their business to mistreat whole populations.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a question of them being re-educated. They can do that from the comfort of a prison cell.
I agree with you.
And then
Definitely.
we need to nurture true leadership, because these people, so-called called leaders now, they are not my leaders. Jovenel
Mm.
Moise is not my president.
Mm.
I didn't put him there. I wouldn't put him there. I have my senses. I wouldn't put somebody who's with experience of governance there, and then to turn out that somebody is himself a criminal. Not
Mm.
just him, but his spouse. They've just been dipping into this money that's supposed to develop a country. And I look at the African world.
Mm.
These creatures that put themselves up, or that others have put up as our leaders, we need to rethink that one
That's
and
right.
start getting used to the idea these people are not leaders. They're taking advantage. They're there, they're dipping into what's not theirs. But where's the leadership? Their leaders are our mothers and fathers who sacrifice for us, who look after us. And then a leader is the father of or mother of your nation. If you're somebody who's filling your pocket, then you should be invited to step aside, or you will
That's
be
right.
pushed aside, or you'll be put in a place where you can get educated by yeah, and I'll bring you some books.
Mm.
But let's
Okay.
think leadership. Let's think of these young people that we're raising, that we're bringing over to these European, to these American to educate for us. What a nonsense. They'll turn them against us as much as they can, and the rest they will somehow get rid of. Fill the prisons, make them useful. The U.S., the prison, the school to prison pipeline over here as well, where our inmate family is giving livelihoods to all these people
Mm.
as prison guards.
Mm.
Um, in walking backward to we can't claim our money from these people, our riches, unless we have an army like them. You know, we don't need to follow those models. We don't need to be the military things, like them. Well, interesting that military, this is here in UK, and yeah, they're celebrating VE Day, is it? And then and we have all these uh, brothers and sisters who want to honor those of us who took part in these world wars and who showed African gallantry, African bravery, and who earned, recognitions. And I give honor to warriors, even though they were warring in somebody else's war. But I think we need to be clear. Uh, we need to be warriors for ourselves at this point. I think there were things for us to learn. But we learn that this orgies of butchery, they call the World War, world wars, and these people, we should not have been in there. Some of us
That's
thought it was for some of us, it was the only way we could keep uh, feeding our families. I understand that. And then when we went into it as Africans. We fought with, we showed these people what warriorship is, but we got nothing to show anybody anymore. And warriorship, as you saying, Elder Bini, and you, Brother Pepukai, is coming from, it comes from within, it comes from the soul itself. Um, I don't know that we need to think, oh, great army or navy. I think we need to think about deep war that we had with us. Example in Haiti, for example in Adwa in Ethiopia, where we pulled it up from within and we faced off to the armies of that day, to the world powers of that day. We needn't wait so we can match their nuclear submarines. We needn't wait for that. We need to go in deep, as Brother Pepukai was saying, go deep now as much as we can during this so-called lockdown and find a warrior within each of us. Because if you're looking for the warrior within, he or she will connect, he and she will do all the warriors around us. Because people who build up arsenals that will destroy the planet over and over. Are people sick who are so insecure, so scared that they have to overkill, and you know, this nihilistic who just don't want to stop killing. They hunt for sport, not for need. And so we need to watch, be careful what models we look for, and then go deep into our models. Because the more we move away from what's ours, the more lost we get. But the more we go back to what is ours, the more grounded we can feel. And we needn't worry about the size of their guns, that thing that kill people at a distance in a cowardly way. If you're going to take somebody's life, at least look them in the eye. And so just leave it there for now. Oh, I'm sorry. Just for the thing, it was back in 1914, on the eve of 1915, that they took away the gold treasury to store it in Fort Knox. I believe it's Fort Knox, not Reserve. Maybe it's a Federal Reserve in New York City. I'm not. Yeah, and no, there's nobody even talking about it, let alone returning it. And then in 1915, then they took our Constitution and ripped it up and wrote one for us. The same Constitution established in 1805 by Emperor Dessalines that said you can't own even a speck of dirt in Haiti if you were coming, if you're European from outside, let alone owning a human being. A country, their country must provide education for its children, and the parents, the families must give these children over to education. So there was a double obligation on the part of the government and on the part of families to make sure education reigned. If you were in Haiti and you were accepted into a society, you were black, you were legally black. There's this film called Legally Blonde that they have, you know, this little girl, but this was legally black in 1805. Even if your skin looked like this, you were very mulatto, or you actually were one of the Polish mercenaries who defected from the French and fought alongside the Africans, saying, can we fight with you, please? We don't want to fight for these people. And Dessalines accepted them into society, and they're still in Haiti today. Guess what? In 1805, they were legally black. This man they call the butcher and this and that was seeing far, you know, beyond. Yeah, and so these I just quoted some of the provisions of the 1805 Constitution. I have a copy here. That, of course, that the Americans had to come and rip up when they came in 1915, because they couldn't work with that. So they wrote one for us. Was it Woodrow Wilson who wrote it? Somebody on a train journey wrote the Haitian Constitution. And then, of course, there's been incarnations of it since then. It's, you know, and certainly Martelly went and added a whole lot of amendments to it, you know, to suit him during from 2010 to 2015.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's a good point you mentioned Dessalines, because there's a question here asking if there's a connection between Osei from Kemet and Dessalines, considering they were both murdered and their bodies cut into 14 pieces, and their wives searched, found the pieces, and put them back together.
Well, Brother Imani, honor and respect to you, my sensei. The fact is, our stories, our human stories, have a way of repeating themselves over time. And when that happens, you know, you can see that there must be something to it. There must, because if that's so, it keeps repeating that. Because this is what happened. This is in fact that Brother Salim, there was such a dread of that man, of that African, that they weren't content just to shoot him with bullets. They had to dismember him and scatter his pieces. But those who cared for him found the pieces. And I think the last piece that they had to find was the head, and they found that too. So because in destroying the idea the Dessalines. The idea is to destroy the idea of freedom in our hearts. After the murder of Dessalines, I don't know for how many decades, it may have been 400 years, I don't know, or 40 years old. You weren't allowed to say the name of Dessalines. Do you hear that? In Haiti.
Yeah, yeah,
Nonsense.
yeah.
Do you know that it reminds me of this film that I watched, this Easter film, where the ridiculous portrayal of Egyptians, of Kemetians as white Egyptians, and then Moses, who was the Jew, the good, chosen by God, quote unquote, and then and how Moses was raised as a son to the Pharaoh, and he betrayed the Pharaoh, so betrayed by him when he went to save his people, the Jews. That story that we told, that is seared into our hearts. Yeah, and then in this moment of sadness, the Pharaoh declares, "Oh, Moses, he's betrayed me so badly. Oh, from now on, let the name of Moses never be spoken." And I remember when I was reading about what these people decided about Dessalines, about Emperor Dessalines, it reminds me of that film. These people, they follow the same script, Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the absurdity that the founder of a country, his name can't be spoken because, you don't like, what he done, the way he did it. Okay. Yeah. But some of that lingers to the day. Um, some of you, the Haitians among us, some of you may know that when children in schools are cussing each other out, and one looks more like this or darker, and the other one looks more like this one calls the other one child of Dessalines, Petit Dessalines. That means you're so dark, you remind of Dessalines. And that's, yes, that stuff happened, is nurtured in Ayiti, because it's universal like that with us, African people. The same thing that affect us this place, affect us in that place, in different, variations, but it's the same things. Because this poison is so deep inside us, we're spreading it at each other. Yeah.
Okay. Now, there's one point I would like to ask, because we know that all over the Caribbean, we can see the Chinese influence. So now in Jamaica, it's very heavy. They've come in, they've constructed roads and other projects and so forth. So when it comes to Haiti now, is that the case? Do the Chinese have a presence there? Any major presence?
Well, you'll see an Asian presence in Haiti, in several different forms. Haiti's, aside from the near monopoly that GGCell has on our telecommunications. Before that, Haiti used to have our own telecommunications, national company, Haiti Telecom or something like that, I think, yeah. And now a deal was struck with, is it North Korea? So that Haiti's, or South Korea, not North Korea, I don't mean North Korea, I mean South Korea. Haiti's telecoms, and not, what's it called again? NatCom, National Communication, is 40% owned by Haiti and 60% owned by North Korea. Yeah. So when you go to the NatCom building in Port-au-Prince, for example, or the one of them, I think there's certainly more than one. I believe there's one. Yeah, depending on how far up you get in terms of the echelon of of the people, what do you call it, the hierarchy at the top, you might see Haitian, but you're gonna see some Asian faces. On another side, if I want some tools, and I want some of the best, the most more affordable prices of tools, and I go to a place where they sell tools, this which is I believe it's a Dominican company, or American, and I need tools. Yes, I can, the Stanley drills and stuff like that. Yeah, they have their prices. But if I want another make that costs less and that can do the job, it'll be Chinese. And so the tool section, we find it's mostly Chinese, and then some of these other, more American makes, etc. Your Bosch, which is your I think your European make, etc. But you won't see. No, there are no Chinese bridges or Chinese buildings being built in Haiti, but they're coming. How could they be in Jamaica and not be in Haiti? They're not. Yeah, and so they're coming for us. They're coming for us in the African world. Are we ready for these people? Are we ready for anybody? Or when do we start getting ready? It's a bit late in the day.
Okay. Now, in the comment. Now, the other point we'd like to bring up is the AU and Haiti's place or role in the AU. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought Haiti was given some kind of observer status at one point. I don't know. If you could just fill us in a bit more about Haiti's role when it comes to the African Union and what's the situation there.
Do you know, I looked into that not recently, but a little while back, because I was excited when I heard that Haiti was being invited to have a role in the AU. And I understand that Haiti had quite a few supporters in that on the African continent, among our African family, brothers and sisters. And then I learned later on that Haiti was knocked down out of that it was refused. For I don't know, I don't remember what the technicality was, what the reason was. Uh, and to me, just as Baba Bini, I think it was yes, and Baba Bebukai as well, but I was talking about the UN, the United Nations, their crimes in Haiti, the polluting, the murder, the killing of so many people, and to come around and refuse to even acknowledge that you did anything wrong. And at the very last minute, before Ben Ki-moon had to leave, his term was over, to give some apology that actually meant nothing. We apologize for not having helped more. I'm sorry. It was for you to help. It was for, you did the thing. Apologize for doing the thing. At least say we messed up. We didn't check these people, these Nepalese soldiers, before we let them into your country. We should have. No, for not having helped more. So he can take his apology and do what, we can think of things he can do with it. In terms of the AU, it's not just the question of Ayiti to me that gives me another feeling for this AU, because when I hear AU, I hear African leaders, and I say this with due respect to all of our family listening. I do not recognize the AU as a leadership body for us Africans. The idea may have started with that in mind, but what we've had for some time is not a leadership body for Africans in terms of representing anything else. I mean, so I'm almost feeling like Haiti dodged the bullet by not being accepting into the AU, because we want to be part of organizations that properly represent us, not those that have carry a name but don't do things for us. That's what I say.
Okay. Now, is there anybody with any other comment, especially with Haiti and the AU? I'm more interested in to pull out what went wrong there.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mario,
Oh, God.
I haven't studied it close enough to know what happened here. But even if Haiti was admitted as an observer nation within the AU, two questions have to be asked. What does the AU represent, and what government do we have in Haiti? That would be the question.
Okay.
Point you're making, it wouldn't have done us much good, because we first have to have a people's government in Haiti, And as Brother Mario said, the AU have to mean AU. Right now, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't like the four of us here don't accept that we have a real AU. The constitution of the AU is right in Europe. The thing is that we see the kind of leaders are unpicked leaders, prop up by all these Western power plus the CIA, who actually go tell these boys, listen, you just do as we're told, just and France will go in and tell them, do as we want and know what we say you must do, and don't ever shift from this line that you're being colonized by us and you're not going any direction away from the colonization. The mindset of our African brothers in the Caribbean and in Africa is totally messed up. We need new leadership and it needs to come from the young, but the young have to realize they have to correct their mindset as well. We lose too much of our young people gunning down each other and stabbing up each other in UK here because their mindset is messed up. Just like the leaders in Africa, their mindset is really bad. You know, and I've traveled to Africa quite a few times, and I know most African countries as political prisoners because soon as somebody speak out against them, they will lock them up or have them killed. But that's coming to an end, a change. People are not putting up with that now in Africa. We will definitely see a new mindset occurring now because no African leader can jump on a plane now and go and get hospital treatment in Singapore or UK or so. People are seeing that. They can't fly out to go and take their family to get medical treatment. The man them don't build up their hospital infrastructure. They make it, the hospitals I've been to see some of the African hospitals. You wouldn't even put a dog in the ward. So the thing is, a mindset is coming because young African people will be able to listen to debates like this and see things about black awareness on the internet. That's the only one plus I'd say the internet and the social media and the Facebook have give us a chance to speak to our people. So it is something that we have to work on. I see there's some African leaders who are emerging on the continent who have a different mindset and they're looking maybe maybe in a few years Haiti could be admitted, yeah, and those are Caribbean islands can be admitted to the OAU, where you can have the Palestinian having observers here to these Arabs, and you can have your own brothers and sisters who were taken out of that country by military force and enslaved in chains. They can have these Arabs have observer status and we don't have it, and we're the sons and daughters of the style of Africa. Yeah. And I must say to Mario, a lot of the Asians there, the Haitians, the people in Congo says that a lot of the people in Haiti is from the Congo region. That's what they say. They, uh, I'm not somebody able to prove it, but they said that's where a lot of them were shipped to. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for all of your contributions, my elders, my brothers. But Taharkah, let me ask you. I'm looking at time here. What's our time? I
Mhm.
see it's 8
No,
o'clock.
yeah,
Can we
I
carry
was going to
on a bit?
say in the last 5 minutes, we just round up. So I'd just like to ask
Okay.
in the last 5 minutes the question as the way forward. What do you see the way forward for Haiti? What say Haiti in 25 years' time? What do you envisage?
Well, my brother, I've never been good at predicting what's going to happen, etc. And I've found that in many ways, unless I'm actually involved in something, it's useful for me to predict what I envision for Haiti, and I don't know when that would come, is a place where we do things rather differently from what we've been doing it for the past 200 plus years.
Yeah, that's right.
A place where we're not talking nonsense elections, but where all the regions of Haiti have so many elders and people of mighty hearts, yeah, who just can't wait to assume the responsibility for their regions, and then to have those regions coalesce, have representatives of a I don't want to use a ridiculous word federal, but a government that represents the country itself, from these different regions, where that centralization, that ridiculous that happening, it's not even centralization anymore. When 3 million people converge on a capital city made for 150,000 or so. So when the earth opens up, obviously it's going to swallow 300,000 plus people at 7 on the Richter scale, whereas on 8 at the Richter scale, just a few months after, I'm thinking about 1,000 people died. What country was it in South America that had an earthquake a few months after Ayiti? A stronger earthquake. They lost 1,000 souls, blessed, who shouldn't have been lost. But we lost 300,000. This ridiculous state of affairs must stop. And so the country starts being neglected. The country starts being planted properly. A country that was feeding all people all around it now is importing food. All that nonsense. And the education of our children, of our young people, that must happen. The education of our adults who left and growing to the age without becoming literate in our language. And to talk about African languages, to take the point that Elder Beanie was making about our languages, Creole, hello, African language. Why? Created by Africans. And created in no time at all. Used in liberation, a language of African liberation. And to deny that language and then to foist French upon us, the language of those we beat. Languages are tools. A knife is a tool, a fork is a tool, a language is a tool. So I'm not blaming French, the French language, but I'm blaming its use and those who use it to keep the people illiterate. That 1% in Haiti who keep it to them, the riches of the country itself, by speaking French to each other and all that. So when a Haitian speaks French to me, they're offending me. If they can't speak to me in Creole, yet they choose to use French, I find it offensive. Because you want to carry on the status quo. The Institute, the Jean-Jacques Dessalines Imperial Institute, will have as its language of instruction Creole. But of course, we'll be multilingual, we'll be polyglots. We'll learn the French, learn the Spanish, learn the English, learn the language of so we can move around in the world with ease, but we're learning it from the base of our language. We learn our engineering, our architecture, our warriorship. We learn our voodoo. We learn our arts from our language, all of it, because the time for the nonsense, for the craziness. So at some point, some of us have to put the hammer down and say that's enough of this.
So, yeah, just to round off. So, Beanie, what do you see? What would you like to see, or how do you see Haiti in about 25 years' time?
Well, I would like to see Haiti a solid African-centered system of our spirituality. Forget the boy and him Islam and Christianity. Forget all that. Because that ain't gonna help us. It hasn't helped us in 500 years or more. We have to go back to an African language maybe because all the people come from, they're saying 56% of the Congolese are from Congo, Kikongo language. I'd like to see that we bring Ubuntu, our spirituality, to our people. That that humanity and love for each other. Uh, Teach our children to be more African centered, loving each other and not hating each other, um, showing the wrong and right and why they are the future of our people, wherever they are on any island, they are the future that will bring about that Ubuntu, oneness to our people, where we work together, sleep together, eat together, enjoy ourselves together, look after our mineral wealth. Because I know Haiti, I don't know if I'm right. Someone told me that Aristide wrote a book about that Haiti are more higher and Kuwait, and there's gold, it's have diamond, and it's precious metal. So really, those precious things are the sea where we have around, the fishes around we must be for the people of Haiti. So the people of Haiti have to have a different mindset that whatever is on the land in Haiti or in our ocean belong to the people, and it doesn't belong to those individuals who work for the criminal cooperative and NGO and these the CIA and the MI5 and all them, the British and the French. We need to have a greater mindset of Africanness, and that's where I'd like to see where it's a
Okay.
place where we'll go for our paying respect to our ancestors who have fought 500 years. Yeah.
Okay. And finally, Brother Pepperkai, what about you? How would you like to see Haiti in 25 years' time?
Yeah. No, this
I'm
is
very much
the
in support of what Brother Mario and Brother Beanie have said. And I would just like to add one little bit, and that as of today, it's about return to source. It's about to begin to build that African consciousness. And to begin by the name of that homeland of Destiny and others. It's not Haiti, as other people call it, but as Brother Mario, a son of the soil,
Ayiti.
Haiti. And that is where we start. One word, Haiti. And from that, consciousness begin to build and the liberation is quickened.
Hmm. Yeah, so we are coming to the end. So I thank my brother KhepHeru and brother Bean and brother Pepperkai for taking part in this lively debate today. I'd also like to thank all those who tuned in today to make this a very memorable discussion. As I mentioned last week, we are now preparing for African Liberation Day, which will be on the 24th and 25th of May this year. Last week, I mentioned that we've been busy contacting potential speakers and so forth, and this week I'll be in the position to update you with some of the names that have confirmed that they'll be speaking at this year African Liberation Day, which will be held on this channel. It will be held online because of the problem with the coronavirus. So I can give you a few of the main speakers, international speakers. So far we have had confirmed Professor James Small, Professor Bayina Bello. We have had Kemi Saber, And we have also had Sister Afian from Nigeria, and Brother Unkumeo from Uganda. So you can see we have an array of speakers spanning the Pan African world. Plus, we have an array of local speakers from here as well. So it will be a memorable time. We'll be circulating information via flyer within a couple of days. So it will be on the 24th and 25th of May. So please save that day for your diaries. It will be, both days will be very special. It'll be an all day long thing. And this will be the 45th year that the Pan African Congress movement is celebrating African Liberation Day in this country. At one point, when we had to cancel because of the coronavirus, it looked like it would be the first time since 1975 that the PSCM has not put an African Liberation Day. But with perseverance and ingenuity and looking around, we decided if we can't put it on in a physical venue, let's put it on in a virtual venue. So I can happily say African Liberation Day 2020 will be taking place, and it will be taking place on this channel, PSCM TV. So until next week, when we'll be back at 6 p.m. with another lively discussion. And just before go, I see Brother Pepper, I want to say something quickly.
Yes, you forget to mention one of the international guests on the old veteran Obatinta Shaka.
Oh my gosh, how could I do that?
Yeah, but
Yes.
that's not
And oh, but
one.
Who's the
That's not
brother?
one.
Sorry,
yeah,
I didn't hear the name.
of course, Obati Shaka.
Obadi
Obati
Shaka.
Shaka. Yeah, Obati Shaka will be one of our special international guests as well. And so we'll have an array of guests. So information will be coming out shortly. So please stay alert. We'll be updating you further next week, hopefully with the flyer. You can see what's happening. But just subscribe to this channel and we'll be feeding information through as to what is happening. So until then,
And when I'm going to talk,
uh-huh.
the main point I want to raise is that we had some discussion as to who the presenter for today would be. And
Yes, but I don't want to get too
no,
much into LD. I just want to give people an overall
give
as
me a,
who will be there.
no, you have no
And
idea.
then,
You have
uh,
no idea.
uh,
So, as I said, I joined the discussion late. I want to know you mentioned KhepHeru, and I didn't know my beloved brother. Let's put aside Mario and his no Peru. So,
Uh,
well, that is.
let me just finish. So, I'm very happy with that
Mhm.
transition because the past President General, who was trained by the Honorable Marcus Garvey, said, the Honorable Charles James, remind me of something. He said, dogs and slaves are named by the masters. Free men and women name themselves. So it's a mighty thing Brother KhepHeru have done. I salute him. He's my beloved brother. And I wasn't wearing my glasses to see his name was up there. So it's a big celebration. One love, my
Yes,
I don't mind too.
and I echo that. It's always good to see we reclaiming what is ours.
yes,
Yeah, and casting off what was given to us.
yes.
And so, and again, until next week, then I thank everybody for tuning in. And we'll be back here next week on PSCM TV at 6 p.m. So until then, I wish everybody good luck and good day.
Thank you, Simon.
Power be. Thank you.
Good
Be
to see
well, my
you.
elders. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I
Peace,
think
love,
we
and
have to sum up. That's right.
yes.
Okay. All right then. Be well, everybody.
I
Be
will take
well,
a
my elders.
break to